Hi, I'm Avishai. I'm a filmmaker and primarily a screenwriter, and I'm excited to be featured on the Searching for Goodness podcast. In my episode, we talk shop about the filmmaking process, some of the business, a little bit of the creative, but largely we talk about bigger questions like how can one be good in the world? What does goodness mean? We talk about climate change and world peace, things that matter. You can listen to my episode on all audio podcast platforms or watch the full conversation on YouTube by subscribing to the Searching for Goodness channel. I would love to hear your feedback. If you have questions for me or thoughts you'd like to share, please leave a comment. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and remember, goodness will win.
Born under a good sign, keep you smiling all your day. Only living the good life, no troubles in your way. Sun, keep on shining on everything that you hold dear.
My friend got me this, and I want to thank
Ooh.
Sarah. It says, "Ask me about my podcast."
Oh, that's fun.
Really cool. She got me during holidays, and she got me this. If you dream it, you can do it. It
Oh,
says.
that's cute.
I really like. So, without further ado, I remember you and I met a little while ago at CineStory. It was like a Screenwriters Writers Retreat. It was really nice. In Idlewild, we stayed in cabins and talked about screenplays for a few days. And I've been following you ever since. You write, you make films. Please tell us about yourself, who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Avishai Weinberger, and I am a filmmaker who lives in Brooklyn, New York. Primarily a screenwriter these days, and just kind of just working on my projects and hoping that some of them happen.
What are you working on these days? Do you have a current project?
Yeah, I have a few. So there are a number of scripts that I've already written that are with producers and are with directors, and every so often I'll be pulled into the development process of those. And there's a different script that I'm writing now for somebody else based on their idea and their treatment, which has been an interesting experience. And on the side, I'm taking another project of mine and turning it into a graphic novel. So a bunch of things happening at the same time.
That's really cool. I actually recently made a filmmaker lady. She did the same thing. She wrote a book and then she turned it into a graphic novel. She's gonna be coming
Oh
up
yeah,
soon in interview. And I loved it. I read the book,
I'll
then the
have to watch
second book
that.
was a comic book. Yeah, it was really nice, really well done. I hope yours is gonna
Yeah.
be good too. I love comic books ever since. I mean, graphic novel, comic book is pretty much the same thing, right? They're like,
Yeah, I mean it's it's the medium, right? It's really just on its own. It's such a good medium. The actual marriage of narrative in text, but also visually, and it's different from movies in that it's moments frozen in time. So the arrangement of the images can itself tell a story, and I'm learning a lot from this process. It's been really gratifying, and I'll have to watch your friend's episode because I'm still learning.
okay, I'll definitely let you know when it comes. Her name is Deborah Pratt, and it's about this a female warrior. Has a little bit of a vibes of like a Dune and Star Wars, but it's different. It's more like a
Uh,
yeah, but
the
there's
good
a little
sword
bit
and
of
sandals
that.
fantasy.
Yeah. It's like a sci-fi fantasy. And I have my own that I want to do someday. It's Queen Bee, which I wrote all the way back in South Carolina, Greenville, when I was over there. I wrote this female hero character. I know there has been other Queen Bees before, but mine is a little different. She's like a revolutionary character. Maybe the closest thing I can think of would be Jennifer Lawrence character. in the Hunger Games. Maybe a little similar to that, but still different. Anyway, we're here to talk about you
Cool.
and what you do. Do you want to tell any of your stories or screenplays? What are they about? What's their genre?
Sure, I'll say as much as I think I'm allowed to say because some of these are, they are with producers and directors and haven't been, announced yet. But I can talk about them to a bit. So I mostly write science fiction and horror features. And the project that is the most, so just to back up for a second, none of my projects have been produced yet.
Mm-hmm.
I've directed some shorts on my own, which have been very gratifying and played the festival circuit. But none of my features have been produced yet. We're working on that. There's a project we've been working on for 6 years now. Oh my God, that's finally looks like it might be on the verge of happening. Which is a science fiction story, and kind of a drama with a science fiction setup. Um, and it's fascinating because it's been through so many different hands. Different directors have been attached to it at different points. Different producers have been attached at different points. For the very first time, I got to experience what it was like to get rewritten by somebody else, which is surreal in its own way. So yeah, so most of these projects are science fiction or horror or science fiction and horror, and the graphic novel is a giant monster story, and I have a project that takes place in space, and so it's they're kind of across that spectrum.
Very cool. And as you know, our project is called Searching for Goodness, and I need to ask you about that. What's your thoughts? How can we find goodness? How can we spread goodness? And what do you believe goodness is? And how can we, as people and artists, contribute to it?
It's a good question, and it's a big question, and it's an important question that I think it's maybe felt harder to find good answers these days because there's so much cruelty and so much pain and also just so much horrible complexity sometimes and things that people will debate the concepts behind these things as opposed to just talking about the outcomes because the outcomes are horrendous. And I think the last time we talked about this, the answer that I tried to kind of formulate is I think it's important for people to realize good isn't a thing you are, it's a thing you do. Because if good is just a thing you are, then everybody can be convinced that they're good and that they're right. And I think that maybe works against, making, putting more goodness into the world. Because if you're already good and you're right, then you don't have to change, then everybody else is the problem. And I think it's important to realize that good is actions you take. Like, are you actually doing things to make life better for other people? Are you being kind? Are you listening to people? Are you offering help where help is needed? It's because at the end of the day, it's the golden rule, right? If you wouldn't want it to happen to you, you wouldn't want to do it to others. And I think conversely, if you want it to happen to you, you should do it to others. If there's it's always the easiest North Star to think about, well, if I was in that position, what would I want? And I think if more people were willing to do that, then things would be better. But in the meantime, I think every little small bit of good that you can do, it's not going to solve the big problems, but little by little, maybe they add up. And something that feels small to you when you're doing it could mean the world to somebody else. So just that's my sort of long rambling answer to that. We can dive more into it if there's
I think it's a good answer. I love it. I mean, we all need kindness. Goodness has to do a lot with kindness, being kind. And it's not always easy because people get on our nerves. Sometimes even we're good people. It's easy to get upset to our friends or family. We just really gotta work on our temper. I'm still working on it myself. So.
I was at a conference, a Jewish learning conference this weekend, run by the Hadar Institute, and a lot of interesting lectures by smart people. And there was one that I thought was really interesting that was about um, how should we treat our enemies? You know, because in an ideal world you have no enemies, but realistically, whether you want them or not, you might. And then the question is,
Right.
how do you interface with somebody? And the sort of big kind of scary question is, are you allowed to hate them? And ironically, the first thing that he brought up was was a Jesus quote, which I thought was very funny
Or
because it
any
was a
other
Jewish
take?
conference. Well, talking about there's a quote in one of the Gospels, and this is an area that I'm obviously not very versed in. You see where my keep up, but there's some gospel where Jesus says something like, "You have been taught, to love your friend and hate your enemy, and I tell you, love your friend and love your enemy." And so we started saying, well, what would he be pointing to say you have been taught to hate your enemy, and trying to figure out what the source of that was, realizing there isn't really a lot of that in the Old Testament. But then it does open the question of, how are we supposed to think? How are we supposed to react to our enemy? How are we supposed to interface with them? And the lecture centered around this one particular rabbi from like the 1600s, the Maharal, um, who made some interesting points about, if you have an enemy, then that person is your opposite, right? Because in order to be your enemy, they have to be contra to you in something that relates to you, as opposed to some random tangential thing. And if someone's your opposite, then you should consider them almost as part of the whole, because everything has an opposite, everything has two sides, everything has, you know, in Newtonian physics, an object at rest stays in rest, but if something bumps into it, then both things kind of push aside, and that's the only way that things can move. And so part of the equation he was arguing is, if there is, something that you have to hate in the world, like an enemy or something, it's better to kind of consider it as, this seems to be the reaction to something. This seems to be the other side of something. Let's fully consider it, and whether we agree with it or not, consider it as part of a larger whole, and then try to use that as a north star. Whereas instead of trying to see it as something to hate, see it as a way to kind of guide yourself to figure out, how can one be the opposite of that? How can one actually be the appropriate response, instead of just trying to stamp it out? Because you'll never get rid of the shadow, but maybe you could be a better light, I think, is kind of where the center of it all was. And it was a conversation piece, and there was a lot of discussion and a lot of back and forth, and no very strong specific answer, but it did have me thinking, and that in particular I think might be useful to keep in mind.
Yeah, and what do you think about, I think when kids are kids, we're also brainwashed in some ways, all of us in some ways. Like, some kids are told, for instance, you're a certain race, you have to be with only your kind, and you gotta hate all the other kind. Or religion, race, it could be anything. Like, people are taught to hate from a young age. If you weren't taught that way, which I wasn't really, I was a Benetton kid. The Benetton and all the colors, United Colors. Like, I grew up with a lot of that. And the school I went to, we had Jewish, Christian, Muslim, we were all together. So, of course, I had a little bit anti-Semitism in my life too. I can't say I never had. Here and everywhere, it happened to me. Or being Turkish, even though they don't know anything about where I'm from, like, people have been discriminative and judgmental towards me. So, what do you think about that? Like, don't you think it should start from childhood? Like, with the more children learn to be like more like a brotherhood, sisterhood, no matter what your religion or race is, then they're not going to grow up to be hateful humans. That's my
Yeah, well, I think that's right, and I think I have something to add to that, because it's true. It's very true that we, particularly as children, you're trying to create a sense of a world that's much larger than anything you'll ever be able to see in your lifetime, and trying to figure out how to navigate it. And it can be easy to kind of grow up in ignorance, and easy to sort of resort to us versus them. I mean, the human brain developed to live in a tribe, right? Like humans used to live in small groups. And so it was easy to develop a brain of these are my people. Anybody else, I don't have to consider them. And so it is important for parents and for teachers to do their best to, fight that. But also part of it is a matter of perspective and how do you gain perspective? Like bigotry is aided by ignorance, right? If you never meet a person of a particular group, then it will never be personal to you. It'll just be some abstract concept. If you've never met a Jewish person, you've never met a Muslim person, you've never met a transgender person, like et cetera, et cetera, it's easy to kind of have an image in your head that can be based on what you've been told or, but then you meet somebody and suddenly it's, well, this is a human being. This is a person. This is maybe this is a friend. And there was a book I was reading that made a really interesting point. If you want to see the world in 3D, right, you need two eyes, right? Each one's a little bit separate than the other. They have a slightly different perspective. And together, the two images that each eye gets creates a 3D image. And that adds depth, literally, to our perspective of the world. And we might want to think about that in terms of how we look at the world at large, because each of us only has our own perspective. You can never actually be in somebody else's perspective. Just by definition, I've never been inside of your brain looking out of your eyes. The technology does not exist for me to do that. But if we can try to imagine it, try to internalize it, try to picture what it's like to be somebody with a different perspective, then that plus your own perspective creates more parallax, creates more depth to your world, right? And it's very comfortable to not do that. It's very comfortable to stay in our own perspective and to just see the world from this one particular way, and then your world is shallow and comfortable. And if you can try to kind of add more perspectives to your own, even though you'll know it'll never be fully truly somebody else's perspective, it'll just be your approximation of somebody else's perspective, that can make the world deeper for you and hopefully aid with empathy, right? It'll help you see more people as people.
Empathy is so important. So important. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people lack that. And the more we can understand and relate to each other's pain or happiness, whatever it is, the more we can create like peace, I feel like.
People, I think, also confuse empathy and sympathy, because sympathy is just, oh, someone over there is going through something and I feel for them. I like I'm on their side, right? Whereas empathy is just even if you don't agree, just trying to imagine what it's like to be them, you know? And that's so hard for some people. And I don't blame them. It's hard, but it's very worthwhile, because if you can empathize with somebody who is not easy to sympathize with, then that makes one step closer to a larger kind of cooperation as humans.
It's nice to not be afraid.
I went to NYU for film production.
Film production. Oh, okay. I thought you did screenwriting.
Yeah, I learned screenwriting there too, but my overall degree was in production.
Okay. Yeah, I went to Cal Arts and then I went to UCLA for a little screenwriting. I saw the other day,
Nice.
Spielberg now got like all 4 big awards.
The EGOT, yeah.
What was it? It's
Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
Yeah, he got all 4 now. That's my new dream. Good again. I always get a little bit of a Spielberg vibe from you, to be honest. Do you like his work? And do you see him as an idol? I kind of do when I was growing up.
I mean, he's the master. I feel like he makes it look easy. I would hope to be even 1/20th of what he is.
Okay, new young coming. Yep. young, upcoming,
Different paths for different people, but he is incredible.
We also, as we're talking about goodness, we should also think of the goodness of the world, the environmental issues. Right now, I don't know about New York, but Los Angeles feels like summer. Climate change and global warming is undeniable. I've been here almost 20 years now. Yeah, it's been 20 years, and I don't remember it being this hot in January and February. So, what's your thoughts on that? Obviously, there is some global warming and climate change affecting the world. What can we do about it? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean it's extremely important, and right now in New York, it's manifesting as extreme cold. We just had Arctic blasts. We're getting more Arctic blasts this weekend. It is currently 32 degrees outside, which is the warmest it's been in way too long. And as I understand, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but as I understand it, that's a result of climate change too, because certain natural barriers that kept the Arctic blasts further north have been eroded. And I wish I was more optimistic, because I don't think this particular problem is going to be solved by the little things that we do as individuals. I think this has to be on a macro scale. Like, I don't think not using plastic straws is going to save the world. But I think if the larger corporations can be forced to be greener, if governments can, which is why I'm not super optimistic, because I don't think our governments right now have this at heart. I think that's not controversial to say. I don't think it's a priority for a lot of world governments right now, particularly America's. But if we can turn things around at some point before it's too late, and work on regulations for companies, for air emissions, private jets, all sorts of things. A lot of it's going to have to be technological. If we can have a bigger shift to electric vehicles, which looks like it's the trajectory right now, but we can go further. More things can be green. It's something that matters, and it frustrates me that it's something that isn't at the top of everybody's mind. And I think the reason why is because our perspectives are so limited, because we only live 100 years at that. And time feels slow to us, and we don't notice the big swings in climate, because our time frame is too small. If we could see the world over the course of thousands of years, we would notice it, and it would look drastic. But we're just, we're so used to we can't see the forest for the trees. And so I hope that some smart people can turn it around. I'm not holding my breath that it'll happen anytime too soon, but hopefully before it's too late. And it's going to have to be a group effort from the top down.
Yes. Or bottom to top. Either way. I mean, I do agree with you. Definitely the politics is important. Governments, like getting out of the Paris climate agreement, wasn't a great idea. Or any little thing, every little law, every little loot that contributes to environment, I'm going to keep going for those people. I'm going to keep voting them, supporting them, and not the others, because environment is the air we breathe. It's everything. And but I also think small efforts also matter. I mean, maybe not a plastic straw, but little by little it adds up. Every little plastic bag, every little environmental product we choose over not. I mean, we can at least try to do, like, I do recycling. I care to do recycling. Unfortunately, I'm not a vegan or vegetarian, although full respect to them. But, everybody can do what they can to contribute. I think is better than just expecting for them to change. And we can keep speak up again about that. There's that.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot that we can do as individuals, and I think it does matter in its small way. I think the thing that gives me pause is that there's a history of governments and corporations kind of shifting the onus from them to us. Kind of saying it's ultimately going to come down to us as individuals recycling our soda cans and not using plastic bags. And that's not wrong per se. Like, it is better to not use plastic straws, not use plastic bags. but it's not going to overtake the amount of pollution that the companies are doing. And it seems like they're trying to shift the narrative so that it's on us. And I think it's just important to hold up their end of it because it is bigger and the footprint is bigger. And a lot of what I've been seeing of efforts to try to appear green from these companies have looked more like trying to, I guess, avoid scrutiny without necessarily making big changes. But at the end of the day, also companies are run by people, and maybe if individual people if it could be ingrained in more people as a core value, then maybe when people are in a position of power, maybe they can be persuaded to act on that value instead of ignoring it in favor of profits. But we'll see.
That's a bench for sitting. That's a tree. Yeah, and those are leaves. I'm your boyfriend.
We always ask an interesting question. What do you think about birds? Do you like birds? Do you know birds?
Birds.
Yeah, I know it's a random question, but I always great answers to this.
Who doesn't like birds? Birds are great. I mean, I've never had a pet bird. I most of the birds I usually see on a regular basis are the pigeons in New York. But who doesn't love birds? Birds are incredible. I don't know how they vocalize the way they do. Whenever I see one that can imitate an existing sound, some of these birds can live as long as humans, which is incredible. I mean, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with dinosaurs, and those are birds. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. I love birds. Why not?
Yeah, I love birds too. And I was very shocked. We went to La Brea Pitts Museum here. And that was the first time, I guess I don't pay enough attention in Jurassic Park. Apparently this was mentioned, but birds are an extinction of dinosaurs. They're actually little dinosaurs. I didn't know that.
Yeah, dinosaurs, the birds are the descendants of the smaller dinosaurs that survived the meteor, right? And now we have evidence that a lot of dinosaurs had feathers. Velociraptors had feathers. Younger T-Rexes probably had feathers. They probably lost their feathers when they got bigger. And I'm always so frustrated when I see people arguing. It's like, do I want dinosaurs to have feathers or not have feathers? Like, look, they either did or they didn't. And if they did, I want to see that. If we're going to make a movie about them, I want to see the feathers. Just lean into them as animals. They were animals. They were big squawking birds. It does make me wonder, though, because if birds can imitate human sounds, could dinosaurs imitate human sounds? Could you imagine a T-Rex just kind of parroting you? Like, it's like you're just standing there and then you hear a voice behind you and you turn around. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Have you seen Prehistoric Planet?
I didn't see that one.
It's an Apple TV show narrated by Richard Attenborough. And it's in the style of, was it Richard or David? One of the Attenboroughs. And it's in the style of a nature documentary, but it's dinosaurs and it's trying to be as realistic as possible. And I'm obsessed with it because I don't know how they pull it off. They do just feel like real existing animals, and there's no effort to make them cooler or scarier or anything like that. They're just living their lives.
Where is it at? I'll take a look at it.
It's on Apple.
Apple? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Check it out. There's so much to see. There's so much.
So much and so little time.
I know, right? Yeah.
I'll tell you the movie that gave me the most hope for movies, because there's so much discussion about, is cinema in trouble? Are people going to the theaters less? Is it going to be replaced by this or that? And then I see Jafar Panahi, the Iranian director, who directed It Was Just an Accident. and I see like he's risking imprisonment, and he's risking, he's effectively risking his life because he feels the need to make these movies. And I'm like, it's such a human thing. Humans have to make movies. I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I can't think the world without movies. Like we all need a little bit, like I need to get away from this life. I need to go somewhere else. Books too. Movies, books, video games. We all need an outlet. We
And we need to express ourselves.
definitely. And would you consider yourself more of a scientific person or a spiritual person? And how do they coexist for you?
It's a question I ask myself all the time because on one hand, I am religious. I am an Orthodox Jew. See, I'm wearing the kippah.
Yes.
And I go to synagogue, and I do all the and I follow the traditional rules that I grew up with. And also, I feel like just intrinsically, I feel more of a scientific person. Like just the way that I'm wired, it's when I look at the world, I'm more inclined to look at it in sort of a rationalist sense than in a spiritual sense. That's just me. That's just my instinct. And so it's always kind of interesting to balance the two of like, on one hand, I feel like I need numbers and data, and on the other hand, I worship a God I've never seen, and in terms of how to mesh them together, I just don't. I just live with the tension. I just let the two things be disconnected and, challenging each other, and have the discomfort of not knowing, and and continue living with that because both sides of me matter to me. That the tradition matters to me, and the community matters to me, and the history matters to me, and the philosophy matters to me. And also, I am inclined to look at the world scientifically, and those two things might never make sense together, and I'm okay with that.
Peace. What do you think about peace? How can we, if we're going to accomplish peace in the world?
God, I desperately want it, especially for the past 2 years. With the war of Israel and Gaza has been weighing heavily on me, and it's I'm in therapy for it, and there are ways in which it's an extremely personal open wound, but like at the bottom of it all, I just want everyone to be okay, and it's really traumatically frustrating to just see that things are just not going that way and to feel powerless about it. But I guess in a global sense, I look at it this way: humans are never going to agree. Human nature, we have things that we strongly believe that other people will strongly believe different things, and there will be friction, and there will be conflict over resources. There will always be conflict, but if we can try to extend understanding to the best of our abilities, try to extend listening, extend the olive branch, try to look, it's always something that frustrates me, particularly on the more conservative side of the political spectrum, is the sense of, oh, it'll never happen, so why bother? It's always going to be conflict, so let's just win. Or surely if we exercise enough force against them, then that will result in peace. And it's like, well, if you have power, it's easy to destroy. It's hard to build,
Very well.
And
yeah.
And I think and just because it's hard doesn't mean it isn't worth trying. And just because it's risky doesn't mean it isn't worth trying. And, it's easy to pick a side instead of saying, well, all the sides are going to exist, so how can we build the bridges? And at the end of the day, we look at how so much of, we look at competition, right? We look at so much of evolution as being driven by competition. We look at so much of progress and societally as being the result of competition. But there's something to be said for cooperation also. And I think it's important to remind people that, because it's always easy to say, well, may the best side win, or may the best idea win, or it's like, or collaborate, cooperate, see what happens when two things that don't seem to mix are put together. Take people from different communities, put them in the same community, create phone lines between people who otherwise wouldn't talk. It's it's the hardest thing in the world because there are as many opinions as there are humans on Earth, and there are as many ways of approaching the world as there are people on Earth, and there are as many demeanors as there are people on Earth. But we should always still try, and we should always still hope for that, and remember that it isn't always the result of one side winning over another. Sometimes it's okay to just want everyone to be okay.
Yeah, love that. So
that's how I see it, at least.
Okay, thank you so much for all the answers. Any last words? How can people look at your work? How can they reach out to you if they need to?
If they want to keep up with me, find me on Instagram. I'm at Avishai Oddity. That's Avishai Oddity. I'm also on Blue Sky and Facebook, but I'm not crazy about those platforms. So, but yeah, Instagram's probably the best place, and hopefully before too long there'll be cool things to share with the world, and we'll see.
Just so you know, everyone I invited to my podcast, there's always an open invite. If you ever find it interesting to join and be a part of the team somehow, my door is open, especially to filmmakers.
I appreciate that.
Obviously. So keep that in mind. And if you meet anyone, because my goal is to turn this podcast eventually to a movie, which is going to be filmed in Antarctica first. I want to make a movie in Antarctica. Again, the title is going to be Searching for Goodness, but it's going to be like a hybrid of a screenplay that I actually wrote. If you ever want to read it sometime, I can send it to you.
Interesting.
Rewrites. And it's going to be a mix of that and with a little bit documentary footage I'm going to put together. So this is actually trying to put some steps to make that movie and then turn it into a travel series. It's going to be like all the continents eventually. So just keep it at the back burner of your mind. If you ever meet someone, if you ever think who might be a good match for this project, anytime, let me know.
Everybody come and watch and join the show. And God willing, if we all put the work in, goodness will win.
Goodness will win. It was a pleasure to have you. I'm so happy that you joined our Searching for Goodness journey.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.